The story begins with the launch of the MTS-42, a sleek, state-of-the-art spacecraft bound for Mars. Its mission is critical, to determine if human life can truly be sustained on the red planet. The journey is expected to last 2 full years, and only 3 people are on board, each chosen for their specific expertise. The ship's commander, Marina Barnett, is an experienced astronaut who's been to space before. Alongside her is Dr. Zoe Levinson, a dedicated medical researcher, and David Kim, a biologist specializing in plant-based oxygen production. David has brought along carefully cultivated plants, confident that he can generate enough oxygen for Mars colonization experiments. Supplies on the ship are limited: food, water, oxygen. Everything is calculated to sustain exactly 3 people for the entire trip. There's no room for error. At first, the mission runs smoothly. Marina is calm and composed, accustomed to the routine of space travel. Zoe and David, new to the experience, are excited and deeply committed to their work. David spends hours monitoring his plants and refining oxygen production techniques, while Zoe focuses on her medical research. All 3 believe they're about to make history. If David's methods work, future human colonies on Mars could thrive, making it humanity's second home beyond Earth. But the optimism doesn't last. One day, as Marina moves through the ship conducting checks, she notices something unusual: blood droplets on the floor. Confused, she looks up to see blood dripping from the ceiling panel. She opens the panel and is stunned to find an unconscious man wedged inside a maintenance compartment. In freeing him, the man collapses onto her, causing a deep injury to her arm. No one can understand how this man got here. He is clearly injured and disoriented. Soon, a new crisis emerges. The ship's carbon dioxide scrubber, the device that removes CO2 from the air, has been damaged in the incident. Marina contacts Mission Control to report the situation. They identify the stowaway as Michael Adams, a launch support engineer. No one knows how he ended up trapped in the ship before launch, but by the time it was discovered, the craft had already departed. Mission Control delivers bad news. Michael cannot be sent back. He must remain with them for the remainder of the 2-year mission. As for the CO2 scrubber, it cannot be repaired. Marina and her crew are forced to switch to backup chemical canisters that absorb carbon dioxide from the air. The problem is these canisters will run out far sooner than the mission requires. Eventually, Michael regains consciousness. Upon realizing he's in space, he panics, insisting he needs to return to Earth. Marina and the others explain that return is impossible. He'll have to stay aboard until they reach Mars. Michael is distraught. He recalls working on the launch pad, then an accident, and waking up here with no memory of what happened in between. His thoughts quickly turn to his younger sister, who's waiting for him back home. Meanwhile, the crew faces a grim logistical issue. The ship has food and oxygen for 3 people, no more. With Michael aboard, supplies will run out much sooner than planned. Days later, Marina calculates that the oxygen remaining for 3 people has now dropped to enough for only 2. She approaches David, asking if his plants can be cultivated quickly to produce more oxygen during the journey. David explains that his system requires additional equipment and materials being sent on a later Mars resupply craft. Without them, his chances of generating enough oxygen here are slim. If he uses the plants now, they'll have nothing for the Mars experiments. Marina insists they have no choice. Without more oxygen, none of them will survive the trip. David reluctantly agrees and begins repurposing everything he can on the ship to accelerate oxygen production. Weeks pass, and against the odds, David manages to produce oxygen, just not enough. Where they needed oxygen for 4 people, the backup supplies plus David's work now barely cover 3. That means 1 person will still have to die before reaching Mars. Marina grows more troubled as the situation sinks in. Soon, even their supply of CO2-absorbing canisters is depleted. With rising CO2 levels and oxygen for only 2 people left, Marina calls Zoe and David for a private meeting. She tells them that unless the crew is reduced to 3, they will all be dead in 20 days. Her unspoken implication is clear: Michael, an unplanned passenger with no mission-critical role, should be sacrificed. Zoe reacts with anger, refusing to accept that killing someone is the only solution. She argues they still have time to think and explore options. One possibility is retrieving oxygen from the ship's upper stage rocket, still attached but hundreds of meters away. Marina dismisses the idea. It's too dangerous. Only she has the training to reach it, but her injured arm makes her unable to attempt the climb, and even if someone else tried, they'd have to pass through a high radiation zone. With tensions high, Zoe negotiates for 10 days to find another way, insisting they hide the truth from Michael for now. Time passes with no breakthrough. Then David brings more bad news. His plants have stopped producing oxygen entirely. Now, the ship has enough oxygen for only 2 people total. Unable to keep the truth from Michael any longer, David approaches him privately. He explains the situation and offers Michael a lethal injection, painless, instant death to save the others. Michael is devastated, realizing his accidental presence doomed the mission's balance. He contemplates ending his life, recording a farewell message for his sister. But Zoe discovers what's happening and intervenes, telling Michael his life matters just as much as anyone else's. She lashes out at David for overstepping, and though David insists he was only trying to save the mission, Zoe refuses to accept it. Determined to find a better way, Zoe begins training Michael to attempt the climb to the upper stage rocket and retrieve oxygen tanks. But days into the training, it's clear Michael's inexperience and lack of astronaut training make the mission impossible for him. With time almost gone, Zoe decides she'll go herself. David volunteers to accompany her, knowing carrying oxygen tanks alone will be too difficult. Before they depart, Marina tells them they'll need at least 2 full tanks to save everyone. They suit up and exit the craft. Ahead lies a perilous 500-meter climb along the ship's exterior in zero gravity. Every step must be deliberate. They're surrounded by the void, and one mistake could be fatal. But not before their supply runs out. In the dim lighting of the cabin, everyone sits quietly, each lost in their own thoughts. Michael looks around at their faces, Marina's steely calm breaking just slightly, David's quiet despair, and Zoe's deep, restless frustration. And then Zoe makes a decision. Without announcing it, she stands and begins suiting up again. When Marina realizes what's happening, she asks sharply where Zoe is going. Zoe simply says she's going back out to get the oxygen tank. Marina reminds her that the storm has already arrived. Outside, radiation levels are rising by the second. Zoe knows. She understands the risk and the cost. But she also knows it's the only way to give the rest of the crew a chance. Michael tries to stop her, insisting they'll find another way, but Zoe shakes her head. There's no more time. David stares at her, his voice breaking as he tells her she won't survive out there. Zoe meets his gaze and says quietly, "I know." She seals her helmet, locks the suit, and without another word, steps into the airlock. The hiss of decompression echoes through the cabin. The inner door closes. The outer hatch opens. And then she is gone, moving into the storm. Outside, the void is now filled with a faint, ghostly glow from the incoming radiation, cosmic particles streaking like silent meteors around her. Zoe pushes forward, her body heavy with the knowledge of what's coming. She moves with urgency, yet with an almost serene determination. The tank is still there, lodged against a panel by a tangle of wiring. She reaches it, securing it with both hands. Her breathing is loud in her helmet, her oxygen levels dropping from exertion. She turns and begins the long journey back, clutching the tank like the last piece of her own life. But halfway back, the storm fully engulfs her. Her suit's radiation alarms scream in her ears. Pain radiates through her body, heat searing into her skin despite the layers of protection. She knows what this means. There's no coming back from this. The ship comes into view, the airlock just ahead. Through the viewing port, she can see Marina, David, and Michael watching her. Zoe reaches the hatch, but does not enter. Instead, she sets the oxygen tank inside the outer compartment, pushing it forward with careful precision. She hits the control to seal the hatch, trapping the precious tank safely within. Her hand lingers on the control panel for a moment, a silent goodbye. Inside, the crew grabs the tank, securing it to their system. They shout her name over comms, telling her to come in. But Zoe backs away from the hatch. She knows that if she enters now, she'll bring the radiation with her, contaminating them all. She floats there, tethered to the ship, the storm wrapping around her like a shroud. Her breathing slows. The pain begins to fade, replaced by an eerie calm. In her final moments, Zoe looks outward at the vast, infinite canvas of stars. A place so silent, so endless, and so achingly beautiful. Her eyes close. Her body drifts slightly, tether still holding her to the ship, as the radiation quietly claims her life. Inside the cabin, the crew is silent. No words, no celebration of survival, just the heavy, unspoken grief of what was lost to keep them alive. The camera lingers on Zoe's still form, tethered against the blackness, the faint light of Mars far in the distance. Fade to black, The mission continues, but it will never be the same.